Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. This was quite an unexpected one, really. So, George, you managed to get in contact with certain people's emails were sent, and we got very graciously got given a screener for this film, Malcolm and Marie. This is the new Sam Levinson film, starring Zendaya and John David Washington, and this might potentially be up for a few Oscars in a few months' time. This film's being talked about most notably because it's the first film to be written, directed, funded, and produced during COVID last year. And this is officially released on the 29th of Jan for a limited release, and is going to be released on Netflix officially on February the 5th. And we managed to get to see it early. We both watched it today. We're here to talk about it. I don't think we're going to go into like masses of spoilers because I think this is a film that people should check out and be surprised by themselves. But we do have some things to say about it. So, this is kind of I won't say this is a random video that we're throwing out, but it was one that was kind of unexpected that we managed to get this.
Yeah, this is like the strangest follow-up to Cobra Kai Season 3 I could have possibly imagined. Literally the same people. So again, thanks to Netflix for that. We obviously won't be delving into spoilers. There are a lot of people that want to watch this. This is going to be an Oscar conversation. So I would guarantee on April the 25th on our 4-hour live stream, as we always do, we'll probably get to talk about specifics from this. But there's still a lot we can say and we will be saying because this was quite the experience. But before we get into the experience, I'm always going to go over the socials. So if you're new to the channel, if you've not seen our videos before, then the best way to find us is on Facebook and Twitter at cinema_savvy. And if you have seen this film or if you will be seeing this film, do comment your thoughts after. Obviously, it's not available for everyone right now. So if you do have any questions over, just fire it over. We'll be able to answer them, but we won't be going into specifics of spoilers and things like that. But we are going to tell you as much as we can. So do like, comment, and subscribe. You know, if you are into Oscar films, we are heading into that direction. I think so many films have been postponed this week. We all saw it coming, but the next cinema release is now May the 7th here in the UK. So that's if Black Widow doesn't move. So we're on a very different path, but there's a lot of streaming films we did outside the wire last week. Netflix have us covered for releases. Disney has us covered for TV on Fridays. It's all streaming now. It's all part of the global plan. But that being said, yes, it's really interesting. Sam Levinson. Now, as a project goes, there's already intrigue at the sort of the first Corona film, to put it lightly. I don't think I've seen many that have been filmed in the coronavirus sort of era, I guess we can say. I've seen some that have been edited, some released, but I haven't seen something that was written, filmed, edited, screened, and sold from April to September last year. That wasn't the, oh, things have settled down, we can do it time. That was the, this thing is here. This is affecting everything. And these guys want to make this film. And that all comes down to Sam Levinson. Now, I've not seen Euphoria, which is the big HBO show. I know that Zendaya won the Golden Globe last year for her performance in that. And I think, was it or an Emmy? Apologies, I've not seen it. I know that the big
Emmy,
it was Emmys. It was the Emmys. Sorry, yeah. It was the Emmys. And essentially was told that season 2 has been delayed. And within that time, he basically said that he was looking out for his cast, his crew. I think one thing's worth mentioning, the credits are at the beginning of the film, which is something like I did check Netflix, like, hold on, like, have I accidentally started at the end? And I think that's testament to the people he had living with him on set. Everyone involved in this had to follow the rules. It was the first film to be shot. I think they said it was in North California or North Carolina. They had to rent out a ranch where they filmed that. Everybody had to live there for the filming. They had to follow so many rules. They had to use gloves and everything to touch to touch doors, wardrobes, everything. It was an incredible production reading into it. And I think that story behind the scenes is something, I know this is really bizarre because I do enjoy this film. I also want to see a documentary about the making of this film because that sounds incredible. And I think where the industry's gone, where the industry's heading, it's really fascinating to read up about the films that are being made right now. But to this level of everything, you know, there are stories from how he approached Zendaya. He was writing 15 pages a day at home for script writing. That is, I think they always say they're lucky if they write a page a day. And Sam Levinson's at home. Some of it's sort of semi-autobiographical. Some issues out of his wife he's put into here as well. Not issues, but they became issues in the film, I guess is a polite way of saying it. But the behind the scenes is fascinating. But I think at the core of it, you've got, certainly Zendaya's become an A-lister, absolutely. and you've got John David Washington, who, if you haven't already seen Tenet somehow or Black Klansman, he's very quickly developing into a household name. And I think that's a really big thing for this film, let alone their performances. The names they were able to bring in to do this lockdown-focused production, I thought was incredible.
Yeah, and films like this where you do have such a limited cast as well. I mean, this is basically just two people. It's literally a dialogue, the entire thing. And you mentioned this before we hit live, where we think that probably a lot of actors kind of crave that. I imagine that's quite a challenging acting job where it's just you and one other person, and you've got the limelight for the entire runtime of the film. But I imagine it's quite a rewarding experience as well, where you probably are spending so much time with this one person. You completely get invested in the moment and the character, and that's kind of necessary for a film like this as well in terms of its plot. And I guess I can sort of give a brief summary here. This is a Netflix written premise of what the film's about. So it's when filmmaker Malcolm, John David Washington's character, and his girlfriend Marie, Zendaya, return home from a movie premiere and await his film's critical response. The evening takes a turn as revelations about their relationships begin to surface, testing the couple's love. Now, you mentioned the semi-autobiographical thing from the director. There is like a big quote that you can find on Wikipedia where he's addressing that, where he does stress that the film is purely fictional, and the basis of the film may have been semi-autobiographical, but nothing went beyond that. And by God, I hope that that's the case, because this film gets crazy in a lot of aspects. So it ultimately stems from the fact that the director, I think it was on his film, I'm just reading here, Assassination Nation, a film I haven't seen. I do want to say I haven't actually seen any previous films by the guy. So I don't know how this one compares, if it's in a similar style or if the director has a similar style to his filmmaking, but he forgot to thank his wife. I guess it was some kind of award ceremony. He forgot to thank his wife for all of her input. And I imagine that led to a very heated discussion later that night, perhaps. And we have this film. So I think ultimately the walk away with any kind of film like this, when it's small scale, is the quality of the performances. And I mean, yeah, as you said, like John David Washington, Tenet, and Black Klansman, out of those two performances, I'd say that Black Klansman's definitely the walk-away winner, but he is becoming a name where as soon as they say, oh, and he's in it, I'm like, well, that's going to be a quality performance, because I really love his performance in everything that I've seen him in. And for Zendaya, I think I've only really seen her in the Spider-Man films in the MCU. I'm trying to think of anything else that I might have seen her in beyond that, but I think that's pretty much it. But both of them have showed like tremendous dramatic chops in this film, with the script they have to work with and the changes. I mean, that's one of the biggest focus of the film, is the sudden changes in emotion, where they're going from arguing to a loving couple to like snidey remarks to each other and emotional, and pretty much every emotion under the sun is in this film. And I think both actors like just portray it tremendously.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big thing, that because I'm not limited to what I've seen, but I've only seen Zendaya in the Spider-Man films, and I think everyone's probably seen Greatest Showman, and
yeah, she wasn't that was
many years ago. Yeah. So Zendaya has become a household name, and I know that Euphoria is the show that's done it. I think when you've got the same showrunner making that move to film, the first person he hires is Zendaya for this, and he approaches saying that I've got John David Washington in mind. Well, how would you feel about that? And she was buzzing for it. And a small little story, John David Washington worked with his sister for the first time. She was one of the co-producers, as is Ashley Levinson, the wife of the director as well. So a lot of small sort of meet and greets going on in there. But I thought the pair of them were fantastic. It felt real, their chemistry with one another. I know that some people were having discussions online when the trailers came out saying that age gap's a bit weird. I don't think it felt that weird, not even for Hollywood. But this film is about the performances. And I think it feels as if each role is written around the actor. And a really big comparison, it's not going to be the first time I think either of us say it today, is Marriage Story. This kind of feels like Marriage Story during lockdown, and that is a compliment. It's very much a relationship drama film, but it comes down to these two characters, and it felt like every line of dialogue was written for them specifically for that moment, knowing that actor can say that, because John David Washington, we both liked him what we've seen. In this film, you very much feel that there's a lot of similarities going on, that you think how his performance is going to go. And then he just hits us with a new range that we've not been able to see from him yet. I've seen him in Ballers, and he was great in that. But I think as far as drama goes, this is his standout role so far from his career. And he's already got a couple of great things to have had. But I think straight away we'll get into Oscar stuff later. But these two are likely going to be nominated, I would say, right now. I know that a couple of Oscar films have been out and there's a couple more coming out, but it felt real. And I think another big thing to come with these performances is the location and filming in black and white. The whole film sort of combined into one. And I think that's a credit for Sam Levinson, because some people might think it's a gimmick, but when the whole film's shot at night as well, and they said that because the building was made out of glass, shooting it in black and white, the cameras they used had low contrast, and it was so specifically done, it essentially looked timeless. And I think that helped massively. I don't know, that's just me that's looking at that black and white stuff too much, but I think everything went hand in hand and just clicked.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even this film, after watching it as well, and the nature of John David Washington's character in the film, it's very hard to critique this film, because there are a lot of moments in the film where his character, I don't want to say, well, I guess he does, berates certain types of film critics, I will say. So I'm trying very desperately not to use the word authentic or authenticity in this movie review. That doesn't count. But yeah, and I mean, there are moments where, you know, it will just linger on like any one of the given characters. They deliver a monologue, and it's just fantastic. You're hanging on their every word, and that's a testament to the writing and their performances to deliver that as well. Now, compared to Marriage Story, and that also Marriage Story is slightly different in that we're seeing a breakdown of a marriage and the divorce settlement and everything like that, and them trying to sort of like pick up their lives whilst also looking after this child that they have together. This is slightly different in that I wouldn't say that this is a breakdown of a relationship. No. I'd say this is almost like a critique of a relationship. There are moments like where you could argue that it's a breakdown of a relationship. And I don't think for 1 second that this is a healthy relationship that these two characters are in. But nevertheless, I think there's like a commentary to be said about that and what it's saying about relationships. That, I mean, this takes place over the course of a night, so like to put it in context, a film like Marriage Story, you'll get that it's going on for like months, years, however long it takes for those legal processes to go on for. This is an argument and a discussion and a back and forth that this couple is having in one night, so it definitely does base itself in time there, and I think that works to the film's credit. However, I think there are moments where there are so many flip-flopping of emotions where and the actors can pull that off well, but it takes it out of that believability a little bit. Maybe there are some relationships like this. I hope I never find myself in one like this, but where it is that constant, it almost feels like not tonal whiplash, but emotional whiplash. How, oh, they've patched it up, they're fine, everything's good. And then a certain thing gets said, and then we're thrown back into like another 10, 15 minutes. And this happens concurrently over the runtime of the film. So there are moments where it kind of strays believability a little bit in that regard, for me at least.
Yeah, no, that's a really good thing, because that's what I was thinking of as well, that you've got these great moments and they'll set something up, and it's almost each scene it's not like it's a different part of the night. It's this overarching story is made up of smaller stories within that, and you could kind of put it into chapters, into a perspective as such. And I think you've got some things that are far more interesting, and then you've got some others that aren't as interesting, but they all sort of methodically go along with each other, that encompasses at the end. And I think that is what does work for it. Not all of them do, but either there's something that I'm not following as well, or I'm not that I wasn't into it. I enjoyed it and I thought it was fascinating. But if there were some things, but I thought I'm not sure why they're having this discussion. It's probably because it is that set in one night. They would have minor discussions, and they'll bring back something from half an hour ago or 40 minutes ago, and that comes into it. And it was really fascinating seeing the sort of not just the writing process, but how things were chosen to be brought in specifically at certain moments. Mm-hmm. And I think it's essentially a character study on these two people, completely different people that aren't just a couple, but they have very similar, I want to say, personas, as well as in their own interpretations of personas. It's really tricky without going into it too much. But the reason I got some of the Marriage Story vibes is because for 10 minutes you'll align with a character and you'll think, oh, you know, this person's like really horrible or being psychotic, and then the next 20 minutes you flipped on the other side, and then 20 minutes later you might dip back. And that's what I like with these sort of character pieces, that you can always align to someone, but there's going to be bumps along that way. And then the way the film finishes is, if you have a side of someone you prefer, you can take that side, but ultimately things come to a conclusion fitting to the film. And whether or not you take sides of anyone, or if you like both of them, it's absolutely fine. And I think that's what's fascinating. I like these films that take you on character-driven journeys and you stick with them through to the end. And I think because the ending of it does pay off, the opening scenes, the opening arguments or whatnot, the discussions about talking about the film premiere he's just returned from or her career aspirations. There's so many fascinating discussions within that. I just thought it balanced out really well.
Yeah, and there are some funny moments as well where he does go into those moments where he is berating certain film critics. And, even I say this sometimes as well, where I think he makes a comparison. I don't want to talk too much about spoilers, but he does an example of like a Lego movie. He says, what if I wanted to make a Lego movie? He says, there's going to be someone out there who writes something like, oh, this is showing the construction of societal conformity and racial stereotypes. There's like, no, maybe I just want to make a Lego movie. And, not every film has to be that. So we're reading into this film and we're dissecting this film. And I'm sure you absolutely could. But because that's in the film, I'm kind of sort of like wanting to bring it back a little bit. I know that that's the character and that's how he portrays it, but I did find that stuff kind of funny. He talks about Citizen Kane as well, like, Citizen Kane and all that. That stuff made me laugh in the film.
One of the lines I loved, and it's not a spoiler for anyone at home, if anyone's done a degree in media or any form similar, any form of projects due, one of my favorite lines from the film is that maybe I don't want to be that person that makes a film for 3 people in my course. Maybe I'm the one that want to make a film for everyone to watch. Mm-hmm. And that made me chuckle, because anyone that's been through anything similar to that knows full well that you are only doing what you want to do to appease 2 or 3 people that are going to be marking your work, not the actual people that you want to watch it or sell it. And that was one of my favorite lines. And that's why I think with Sam Levinson, because he's obviously been on the other side of it, he's been an actor as well as a director. You've got both sides, not of him, different people. But I like the fact that because he's done both sides of that filmmaking aesthetic, I think that probably helped him write specific character scenarios, because not all directors have acted, not all actors have directed. Mm-hmm. There's such conflict within it, and I thought that was a really good breakaway from it. But also, as I know there's been a bit of a murmur online about some critics not liking it because of how it targets critics and whatnot. We're just 2 people chatting on the internet, but some people being completely offended by this film, I thought was amazing, because I'm not saying this is a commentary on delving into stuff. There are moments of that, but to me, this feels like someone that, I don't want to say the word millennial. No, it's someone that's a younger filmmaker commentating on modern filmmaking. And I think that is one of the things that fascinated me most, because not many people have the balls to say or do that. And I think the fact he followed through with it, I thought was great. And I think that was something that was needed, because it's a very touchy subject for some people. And I thought they handled it really well.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's some of Levinson's own critique there, aimed at the movie. Not so subtly thrown into the movie, but because it's said through John David Washington's character, who is a filmmaker, then it kind of does keep it in character, although you can sort of see through that veil of it going, well, these are probably all of the director/writer's opinions on this given subject matter. But I'm trying to think some other, even in terms of the direction though, and especially it's very difficult, shooting something in one location unless you give it that sense of space as well. It could feel very confined, and maybe that's your intention as a filmmaker if you want to make it sort of like a claustrophobic, sort of like psychological thriller type film. I'm trying to think of another film that mostly stays at one location. Parasite is one that jumps to mind, that's mostly set in the house environment.
The one that I always go to is called Locke. It stars Tom Hardy. It was written by Stephen Knight, who created Peaky Blinders. This is a film about a man driving to Wales. The whole film is him in a car, having phone conversations. They have other actors come in to do voices on the phone, but the whole film is him in a car. And I like these films that try this differently, because it has to be character-driven. You can't afford to have that. And what fascinates me, when you have one location, quite often the cinematography is outstanding. I thought the camera work in this was stunning.
Especially in the intro for me. One of my favorite bits is where you've got John David Washington dancing from room to room and the camera's outside, like dollying across the room. That shot stuck out in my mind. And when a shot can do that, I'm still thinking about that shot now and how it plays out with the soundtrack too. That's definitely one of the standouts, I think, for me. And that I noticed that instantly as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of long takes. There's a lot of, there'll be like I think it's like a 10-minute take at one point near the beginning. And even when they're going in different rooms, they might frame them from outside and the camera's inside. And I know they filmed it on a kind of ranch, but the fact that they could get creative with such a small venue, I thought was incredible. And adding in that black and white aesthetic with it, I think really helps. And I think, to be fair, this is going to be cinematography-wise as well as performances. That could be another shout at the Oscars too, because I thought it was phenomenal. And again, it's going back to the situation, which I'm not trying to sort of have this film stand out than others, but I do really think they have to take into consideration that this film was made during a pandemic. At the time of making, any film made right now is being made during a pandemic, but I would say that's probably the peak of it, when it was new, when it emerged, when everything went tits up. The fact this film was made through that is a testament to every single person involved. And that's why when they had those credits in the opening moments, I thought fair play, because they're the people that, I'm not saying that, I'm not going to lie, I don't sit through the film credits. I know you definitely always have done. But when they have them at the start, I've never got issues. I know some people do, but when it's been that important and everything's been put on the line to shoot this, go ahead, have the credits done before we even meet the characters, and that's what the film does. That's a testament to them.
Yeah, and I mean that's quite an old school film thing as well. Like go back to like the old classic films, they would always open with the credits. That was just always it. And then like you'd have like the end, and then it would cut off, and that would be it. Now we sort of have like 10-15 minutes credits all at the end of the film. So maybe that was, let's just get this out of the way and just thank everyone right off the bat for making this, and now let's get on with the film. Or maybe it was done as some kind of old school film kind of way, but judging by some of the critique in the film, maybe that wasn't the case. I'm not really sure. But yeah, so like my overall opinions on this film, I had a blast with it. I think definitely the walk away is the strength of the performances in the film. But I do like films like this, the one where maybe it is only set either in one or just a handful of locations. It makes it feel more personal. It definitely feels like it's a personal film to Levinson himself. It sounded like, he had something he wanted to say, he wanted to make, and he braved the conditions and he powered through, and he made a great film out of it. I would definitely like to see Zendaya and John David Washington get a shout at the Oscars. There are moments in their performances, as I said, some certain monologues. I don't want to go into specifics, but there's a moment where John David Washington's sort of like confessing how he's been there for her during some really trying times in her life. And at the end, towards the end of the film, Zendaya gets one of the walkaway monologues in the entire film, which really did stick with me. I think overall the film is sort of, this he does say, obviously, it's entirely fictional. And I did mention that some of the flip-flops between emotions do feel very sudden and do feel slightly unbelievable, but it is a film after all. But I think there's probably a real good sort of like conclusive critique on what does it take to be in a relationship. Yeah, you have all these arguments, and I would say that most of the arguments in this particular film, what these two people have in this couple, are quite damning. I don't think this is necessarily a relationship that should continue, but nevertheless, I think by the end of the film, you can kind of see through that and realize that these two characters, these two people, kind of need each other through all like the messed up emotional turmoil and emotional blackmail and anger and everything like that. There is some connection there. There is some kindred spirit there where both of them are sort of made for each other and need them as well, which is kind of very weird. Even the tagline for the film is madly in love, and I think that's a perfect tagline for the film itself. I think this is one that I definitely give a few more watches as well. I think you could probably pick up some nuances in the performances, definitely. But yeah, I'd easily say this is one of the best things that I've seen Zendaya. Well, it is the best thing that I've seen Zendaya in. Haven't seen a lot of her stuff, haven't seen a TV show, and certainly John David Washington as well. It's another fantastic performance from him.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of with that. I think this film was a solid. I mean, I know it's only the sort of tailing end of January, but I think we've already got potentially one of the best films of the year that we may have seen. I think this is going to be in the Oscar shouts. I think the acting categories for both of them, potentially writing, potentially cinematography. But I thought this is great. I want to have a rewatch of it. I probably will nearer to the ceremony, but I think there was so much to take away from the performances, what they're doing with it, and the fact that they were able to make this when they did, and how they were able to make it, I thought was fascinating. So I would definitely recommend this to everyone. And I think when this does come out on February the 5th, I think it's that really small release and most of the world won't be able to go to cinema on the 29th of January. I think this is going to be one that gets massive on Netflix. I think a lot of people will be checking this out. We know that Zendaya's got a massive following. We know that John David Washington's getting up there. He's done his A-list of films, and I want to see more from them all. I want to see more from the director. I want to go watch Euphoria now. There's so many TV shows that we all need to watch and carry on watching, and I kind of want to see this because from what I've heard, it's great. But I thoroughly recommend this film. I think if you want to see something different, something character-driven, it's almost a psychological horror in a really polite way. And I think sometimes it can be great when you have to stay in the location with the same people, and I think that's a massive takeaway from this. So I thoroughly recommend this to anyone watching this out there.
Absolutely. I don't have anything else to add, and usually we open it up to a discussion for you guys watching to let us know what you think about the film, but obviously you have to wait a little bit longer, so we want to know if you have any questions regarding Malcolm and Marie. Please do get commenting along, because we do reply to all of your comments, and we like to keep the conversation going even after these are done, and to keep it going in the comments, so please do that. Obviously, we'll be back on Tuesday for our retro reviews. Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. GMT, we have our series of retro reviews, and on Fridays, currently we're covering the WandaVision TV series on Disney Plus. So please join us on Fridays as well, 8 p.m. GMT, always for that. And of course, if you want to follow us on social media, the best way to do that is on our Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at cinema_savvy, and we do have some merch available as well. TeePublic link in the description down below. Feel free to check that out as well. So thank you for everyone who tuned into this review, and we'll see you on the next video, guys. Take care.